Hello, welcome to Deeper Shopping Online, and we are here with Mark Hall. He is the lead singer and songwriter of Casting Crowns. It is a Grammy Award-winning group, and probably one of the most unlikely stories that I have personally read to be a songwriter and everything that God is doing in your life. You're also a youth pastor.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's your real heart. Mm-hmm. So welcome to our mini feature here.
Thank you so much.
You won a Grammy for your very first album. I guess, is it called album these days? I don't know.
Some people call them records still. We're making a new record. I never have understood that. So I want to say CD, but I think it's more artsy to say records.
Artsy.
So
okay,
still learning all that
stuff. It is, really. Well, thank you. Thank you for informing me on that. You had to overcome so many obstacles, and yet the very first songs that God gave you were so anointed. Give us a little background. I was so intrigued by your story of how you grew up with dyslexia, ADD, and yet you overcame, with God's strength and power, you overcame those things to become just an incredible songwriter and youth pastor and minister.
Well, thank you.
So give us a little background on that.
Well, I think that God is calling us all to some sort of ministry. We've all got spiritual gifts. We're a part of the body of Christ. That means that there's something that we're supposed to be doing. We're not the audience. We're the body. So, I think that just that one message of what God's been doing in my life in that situation, and with the song Voice of Truth, I think it may very well be the reason why Casting Crowns is around, just to say, look, we've all got our buttons, we've all got our weaknesses, we've all got our little things that Satan uses to remind us that we're not good enough, we're not old enough, or we're too old, or we're not trained, or we've all got these little things going on. And for me, it was dyslexia and ADD, and just constantly being reminded that if I ever tried to step out in any way, it would all just come out, you know. And I hid that. I was 21 years old before I ever said dyslexia out loud. So, I mean, I was in all the learning disabled classes as a kid, and none of my friends ever knew it.
Really?
I mean, hiding your school
had a hard
schedule.
Time reading, didn't you?
Oh yeah,
I mean,
it was tough. Hiding your school schedule from your friends. I mean, that's skill to do that. so you know, so that my whole life was not wanting anyone to know me really, and just be the clown and be out there and do all that. And when I started realizing that God was calling me to something. I didn't really know what that was, but all I thought was, man, that means I'm going to have to step out, and that's just not going to happen. And just that struggle was really tough.
Did you have background in music, or was this just a gift? Did you have any background in writing or?
I would sing with my dad in church. I grew up in an awesome Christian family. My dad is just. I wish all of my students now could grow up with my parents, you know, that they don't all have that. But would sing with my dad in church, and I'd always be the one behind the pulpit so they couldn't see my legs shaking, you know. But that was really it, just singing in church and, you know, the youth choir and all that kind of things. And I was more on the art side, visual art stuff, painting and stuff like this. You know, that kind of thing was kind of what I gravitated towards, because it, you know, subconsciously I just didn't want to be around anything that would draw attention.
Have to be in front of the public, and now God has you just.
And I tell people in concerts a lot, I say, I've never walked up onto a stage in my life thinking, let's rock. When I get up on the stage, I'm like, Lord, we are going down right here.
You don't show up.
I know it. You know, because I thought, you know, now that I'm serving you, Lord, I'm out here doing this thing, all these disabilities are going to go away because I'm doing the right thing, right?
That's
and,
good.
And they didn't. and God just started showing me just like He did in Paul's life, because Paul wanted all his thorns to go away so he could be good at ministry. And God said, look, my grace is sufficient for you. And this little disability, whatever you want to call it, thorn or button, is causing you to rely on me. And I can do more through you when you're relying on me.
And Paul also said, in my weakness, you know, I will glory in my infirmities, glory in my weaknesses. That is a very hard thing to do.
And you don't
that the power of Christ may rest upon us. But it's through those sufferings that really Jesus and the reality of Christ's power is made known to others, isn't it? It's not in our having everything all together. And you know what? Nobody does, really.
But for some reason, we all act like we do.
Oh, yeah.
And so I get one of my goals on the stage is to just be the first one to rip all the plastic off and say, look, I'm a big dork. you know, and I mess things up, and I'm self-destructive, and here's all the areas I'm struggling with, and just take all of those facades down, because if we did really boast in our weakness, like Paul said, people would see, wow, you know, if God can do that through him, surely he can do it through me. And that is our goal. It's just to show you God really can use anybody.
Well, this is really interesting, because I had a vision one time of Jesus, and he showed me his wounds. And it was like Jesus was, you know, just go into the wounds, just go into those wounds. And when I did, all I found was total and perfect love. So when we show people our wounds, you know, not be afraid to, you know, Jesus wasn't afraid to show his wounds even after his resurrection. We're resurrected beings, but we still have the scars.
That's right.
And that's really what it's all about, is sharing those wounds, and but the power of God and the love of God is able to overcome all those obstacles and all that pain in our lives. But Mark, you talk about God lines, and I just love that term, because you have God has just given you such incredible lyrics in some of your recent songs, and I love that line. Tell me what a God line is.
For me, it's the line in the song that every time I sing it, I know good and well I didn't have anything to do with it. I remember the first time I ever sang, "If we're the body, why aren't his arms reaching?" And I thought, why did I get to hear that first? You know, Jerome Olds once said, "There are no writers. God's just singing the songs, and you get to be the first one to hear it." You know, so that's me. It's like I see myself more as a receiver than a writer. You know, because I know what I'm good at, and I know my skills, and I see lines in our songs, and I'm thinking, I didn't come up with that. That's not me. That's
you know, that is really a good way of looking at it, is you're a receiver. It's almost like God is the songwriter. The Holy Spirit is the songwriter. But you are a listener.
Yeah.
You hear the music, and then God, you hear the lines, and you just simply write them down. So isn't that freeing as a Christian to know that that's really all what it's all about, is surrendering and receiving, and then letting him flow through us.
And anytime we're afraid or nervous or apprehensive, it's because we've reversed that, and we're seeing it as something, oh, I've got to do this well, or good's not going to happen. And that's the journey, is always coming back to the fact that all good things come from him. You know, if it's going to be eternal, he's going to do it.
That's right.
Or it's just going to be music. You know. It's just
so tell me some of your favorite lines, your favorite God lines in some of your songs.
Well, just off the top of my head, "Praise You in the Storm" is a song that's being played a lot on the radio right now, and the line of the chorus says, "I will praise you in the storm, and I will lift my hands, for you are who you are, no matter where I am." And that, "you are who you are," I remember when that happened, and I was like, oof. You know, it's usually like a month before I could sing it out loud without crying, that kind of thing. And that's when I just know, like, you know, thank you for letting me hear that one.
Well, that you said too that was one of the lines that God gave you, and that was before the tsunami was, you know, in Indonesia, and that God had given you that song, and when that song was played, that it comforted so many people that had gone through that.
You know, it was written for a little girl, Erin, that passed away about a year ago, and just the journey of this mother, a friend of the family. But when the record came out, it came out when the storms hit.
That's
and
amazing.
It's like God just took it and just went somewhere else with it. And it was actually Katrina when those storms hit, and it was just the letters that started coming in.
Oh, it was okay. It was Katrina. I'm sorry. I thought it was this.
Well, you know, all of a sudden on the radio, a radio station somewhere made us mix of it with the president talking and people talking all through it, and I'm sitting here listening to a song, going, "Wow, I didn't even see that coming." You know, so that's proof that God does what he wants to do. you can think you know what it's about, but just be quiet and stay out of his way. Let him do what he wants to do.
Man plans his way, but God orders his steps. So God had prepared that song to bring comfort to so many people through Katrina. What about that? You have a couple more lines in here about the voice of truth. I love that line. And then your love is extravagant. You know, to me, I think his love is so extravagant that there's no, I love that. But talk about the voice of truth now a little bit.
Well, the Voice of Truth is a song that started when I first went to college. I felt God calling me to ministry, and I was just struggling with all that, going, okay, and I just jumped. And within a week's time, I got married. Melanie and I were married. I moved out of the house. I moved out of the state. I started Bible college at Baptist College of Florida in Graceville, and here I am in ministry world in 1 week. And the very first day of school, I figured, since kind of like, I'll let God give me a little bit and then I'll run with it, go too far, you know. And I knew He was calling me to something, so I thought, well, let me figure this out. I sing with my dad, maybe that's it. So I went to major in music. And it was the first day of class, and it was the placement test, where you take a test and they show you where you're going to be placed in it. And it was that day, in all of my excitement, I remembered, I don't read music. I never thought of that.
The whole placement test was
it was all, and I thought, I don't read any music at all. And I wrote my name on the test and turned it in. And that day, to me, it's like crash and burn. I was like, God, what's the deal? You know? And out of those strugglings, God started showing me, Mark, I don't need you. You're not here because of your skill. I want you. It's totally different to understand that God is going to do what God is going to do. He just wants to know if we want to come and be there. And
be a part of what He's doing.
Be a part of what He's already doing. And you know, He doesn't need me to pull all this off. He's just letting me be a part of it. And starting to release that and realizing, okay, God, I thought I knew what this was all about, and apparently I don't, so where are we going to go next? And that's been my life for the last 16 years. It's just going, you know, holding everything in your hand like this and saying, you can put something there and you can take it out. You can put casting crowns in my life if you want, and the moment you want it, you take it. I got it, because if when I start holding on to it, I start goofing things up.
And you know what, too? Our identity cannot be in what we do.
Very much so.
Or in our gifts, or in our talents, or in any way God is using us. Our identity has got to be as a son and daughter of the Lord, and that He loves us totally unconditionally, no matter what.
Well, He says in Romans 8, He's conforming me into the image of His Son. That's His purpose for my life. That's it.
Right. That's
and
right.
I might become a youth pastor, and you might become a doctor, and you might, but that's not your purpose. That's the journey to becoming Jesus. He's turning me into Him.
That's right. Tell us a little bit about your ministry to teens. I know you're a youth pastor, and that is really your heart.
That is.
And you are ministering to teenagers, and you talk about the prodigal sons and daughters that you get a lot of letters from mothers that are just in anguish about their sons and daughters. And tell me a little bit about that ministry.
Been a youth pastor for going on 16 years. And just loving on teenagers, and that's where God took me. Remember, I went to school to study music, and a year into it, He just blew me out of the water with, I want you to work with teenagers. I thought, you've got to be kidding. I would not know what to do with a teenager, you know.
Wow.
And from that moment on, I just bonded with them. The realness, the soft heart, the fear of stepping out, and all that stuff that where we all live.
All the insecurities, we all have those as teens.
Yes.
But nobody really talks about it. So to have someone that came out of the fear level that you did, and the dyslexia, and stepping out, and is that really a comfort, do you think, for teens to know that, hey, I'm no different than anyone else?
Well, I tell this story in the book about going to a student conference for the state of Alabama, and 6,000 teenagers in this place, and this speaker named Dev Edwards gets up, and in the middle of his sermon, he says, oh yeah, I'm dyslexic. And he starts telling all these dyslexic jokes. And I'm sitting in the crowd thinking, what are you doing? You know, they're not going to want to listen to anything you say if you tell them. You know, and I'd never said it out loud at this point, you know. And the transparency there really got a hold of me. And just transparency with teenagers speaks more than anything. Just that you're a real person, you struggle, you're making mistakes like everybody else. That's a big deal.
Wow. Well, Mark, we just so appreciate you coming on the program today.
Thank you.
We look forward to many more years of your ministry to teens and the hurting and the broken, and those that so desperately need the voice of hope, the voice of truth in this generation.
Thank you.
So God bless you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.